Hi guys, Tucker here with a new video, and this video will be a fast tier list PvP video. At least I think it will be fast, but I'm not sure. So I will try to make a fast tier list for once, and try to give my reasoning behind every single placement. But I will try to not go too in depth because this is a prediction video. I will for sure make a full PvP tier list video once the patch is out and once we have finally tested a lot of those things in Soul Shuffle and also in 3v3. Now let's talk right away and start right away with the tier list. I don't know if I'm going to do timestamps, depends if it's longer than 20 minutes or not, but if it's longer than 20 minutes, I will for sure make some timestamps. So, Frost Decay, they are B tier now. They got some buffs, there's some changes on Frost Strike damage on their and also their spec tree. I did make a video yesterday about the patch notes, so if you want to know what is completely changed, please be sure to check that video out. It's a 1 hour video, but it's a in-depth patch overview. But pretty much they got like good changes. I think they still suffer from the same problems, which is disarm, probably wrecking your trinket most of the time. And I think it is still a spec where you do absurd amount of damage, but it is always with a Pillar of Frost go, and if your Pillar of Frost go is not there, then you will just run away most of the time. I will be playing a lot of Frost Decay this patch because I want to try it out, but also a lot of Unholy Decay. Unholy Decay for me is going to be A tier. I think the changes towards the damage for Deathcore and the Commander of the Dead will make it more viable, but also valuable. It will be interesting to see if Pet's spec is going to be coming back and actually being super viable in Soul Shuffle. I think Unholy Decay has damage that is very hard to stop. Once it is actually sticking, you most likely will die. I think in general, Unholy Decay is the better spec because it has consistent damage. I wish Frost Decay had more consistent damage, but I will be testing a lot of those changes in PvP, so be sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to see Decay tests. Demon Hunter is getting nerfed on their damage, but overall you're not really doing a lot of eye beam damage in general. You're from my POV, people do eye beam for the haste proportion, if I'm not mistaken, and not really for the damage proportion. At least on details, I don't see a lot of eye beam damage. But if I'm wrong, please comment below again. But I think it's still going to be a S tier spec in Soul Shuffle. It has still the defensives to deal with a lot of specs. They have still a lot of damage that is pretty free to do. You're still going to top meters. You're still going to avoid a lot of damage with glimpse, with blur, with darkness. You have a lot of CC, which is going to be nerfed in 10.1 because CC durations are going to get nerfed. But for now, I think Demon Hunters are still S tier and very strong going into 10.7. We have also a tank here, so it's going to be in tank spec. Balance Druid is going to be insane in 10.7, guys. You have some dispel protection. Now, is it going to be S tier? I don't know about that. I'm going to put it in A tier, and I'm actually tiering it, ranking it melee ranged healer. So it doesn't mean that Balance Druid is worse than Unholy Decay. It just means that it is the best healer like range spec right now, until I add more specs. Balance Druid is very nice because right now you can have some dispel protection. People will be scared to dispel it. I don't think you want to get starbursted for free, and Stellar Flare will be something that you can probably go for more often to get some dispel protection on your Moonfire and Sunfire, and just in general do more damage. I think it's going to be very noticeable, and in 10.1 it will be even better. It is a high skill cap ranged DPS because you do need to know when to cyclone, when to not cyclone. You need to know how to survive and how to actually be obnoxious. If you're like standing still versus like rogues versus warriors and such, you're going to get eaten alive. But if you know how to kite and you know how to deal damage, you're going to do better. It's definitely not a very easy spec to play. I think feral druids, I will predict them to be a bit lower this patch because they did get nerfed on the Berserk Go. And yes, consistent damage will be a bit higher, but you're not going to kill someone with Shred or with Brutal Slash. So I think for me it's going to be a B tier spec. Probably better than Frost Decay though. It's really on the verge of being A tier though. But I think right now feral druids, they are just not as good as before. And the meta right now, what I'm seeing is you're going to probably get wrecked by the hunters, by assassination rogues still, and by other specs that are actually on the rise. So for me, feral druid is B tier. Guardian druid is going to be like in the tank tier. Resto druid is, well, it's very hard to judge because again, my heart is going to say, look, in 2v2 it's going to be more fun to play with deep focus, but in social you can't really like solo hot someone to get more healing. So for me, it's going to be probably B tier. You still have disc priest to fight. You have still a lot of difficulties versus a lot of specs, and I think it just doesn't add anything except healing. And even cycloning, you're going to get set back pretty substantially if you're doing it at the wrong time. It's a high skill cap spec, so again, you can still win games because you're like clearly the better healer. But sometimes, I mean, that is not enough. The spec trees change, and how they will heal and how they will try to deal damage while healing is going to be a change. So we will have to see if it's going to be better or not. For me, it's going to be a B tier spec. Devastation Evoker, I think is still going to be B tier. In Social Fall, you still are someone that is going for a one shot, or you're going to get one shotted yourself. They got a few changes on the survivability. I don't think it's going to be enough, but Renewing Blaze is going to be buffed, so it means that you can like reverse the damage pretty fast. Now, I don't know, man. I think they're still one tricky, and that's basically because they don't have enough spells. If they had more spells, it would be a bit better. But right now, I think balancing will be very hard because either you're going to balance a fire breath to be too strong, or like a deep breath to be too strong, or disintegrate to be too strong. But those spells are all like too strong if they're balanced correctly. So it's either always going to be S tier, middle of the pack, or below, but never going to be between those two, because again, it's very dreadful how they actually try to balance devastation. I think they just don't have enough spells. They have to add more spells, and then you can have more power into different spells into instead of just one big spell. That's the main problem I see with devastation. Preservation Evoker is, in my mind, A tier. They still have some problems with Disc Priest, but I think overall you got buffs. Um, I think you still have like one of the most high skill cap gameplay out there. The difference between a very good preservation evoker and a very bad one is like leagues. It just is like something you cannot miss. Like if someone is playing very badly with a preservation evoker, you do see it from a mile. And then someone that is very good with a preservation evoker, actually doing a lot of sleepwalks, a lot of great healing, and using their echo at the right time and for the right spells. Yeah, they are very good. So for me, it's A tier. I think it's really on the verge on S tier more than B tier. But right now, I think it's one of the best healers out there, I would say, with Disc Priest, for example. BM Hunter is still going to be S tier. I think Traps is still very strong, very obnoxious for people to deal with. I play myself BM Hunter, and I know that it has some sick power to it, but some sick amount of damage that they can do that is very unavoidable. They did get nerf on Piercing Fangs in PvP, but they got buffed also on Kill Command and also on Stomp. So I don't know if it's going to do any like difference to it. I have to test it, but I think BM Hunter is still at the right spot because they have the CC to deal with. Maybe in 10.1 with the nerfs for Hunter traps and such, they're going to get a rank less, but right now for me it's still God tier. Survival Hunter, I want to put it in B tier as well. Top of B tier. I think they didn't really get changed, but their enemies, like natural enemies, got like changed. I think a Survival Hunter will have a lot of difficulties to actually survive, like a Frost Decay. Yes, you have like a freedom, but that's not enough versus a Frost Decay. They can just blind you, they can stun you, they can do some pretty good damage. Same for unholy decays, like your feign death doesn't really matter too much. You're going to be good versus affliction warlocks and such, but we will have to see how they're supposed to survive. I think it's more about the survivability. If they survive, they are going to be better. If they don't survive, well, they're going to be worse. The one thing that is going to be good is Survival Hunter has a lot of damage, but I think the average player will always have difficulties surviving and dealing damage at the same time. Again, if you're talking about big mechs, of course it is feeling like a S tier spec, but I think if you have to compare between BM Hunter and Survival Hunter, it's a clear winner. BM Hunter is just that much better. LM Hunter is going to be A tier, probably top of A tier, does a lot of damage, is buffed a bit, but the spec tree has been changed to a way where you're going to be diminished because of that. And I think they could be S tier if they had like one extra buff, but most of the buffs are for PvE because it's not applicable for PvP, and the spec tree has changed to a way where you're not going to have a lot of benefit to it. And yes, your easier enemies got buffed, so they will probably play more like Destruction Warlock, Demonology Warlock, Affliction Warlock. But you as a Marksmanship Hunter, your damage hasn't changed, so for me it's going to be A tier. I think it's going to be good in this meta, but it just needs a swing towards a buff or a nerf to get S tier or B tier. I think it's one of the most volatile specs out there if you want to main a spec. Arcane Mage is still going to be A tier. There's nothing to say. They didn't really change. I think it's still one of the best solo shuffle specs out there if you're playing good. Again, a bad mage and a good mage, it's also league apart. But if you want to see a bad mage, I'm a bad mage. If you want to see a good mage, you can see one of the better mages, and you will see the difference between someone that knows when to polymorph, someone to know how to survive, when to alter time, and in general, you're going to face those good mages around 2k, 2k1, 2k2, 2k3, and you'll see that it is still obnoxious to play against. I think Fire Mage is still B tier. They probably better than Devastation, to be honest. They have some good damage and some good combos to go for. I think just survivability wise, it is really low. If it could survive a bit more, it would be easily A tier. But right now, it is either you're a glass cannon, you're going to blow someone up, or you're going to get blown. So for me, B tier is justified. Frost Mage, S tier. I'm not going to change my ways of thinking. I think it is one of the most face roll casters out there. Although still with a skill cap, again, not everyone can face roll with it, but you just need basically to do a ring of fire into a icy veins. No, into a flurry, into icy veins, into a Iceland spam. You can put also an orb with Icelands, Blizzard, Icelands, and someone is going to die if you're doing like that. And you can also play very badly like me and not know when to Glacial Spike. But I think if you're playing the correct way, you can still win games just because of a simple rotation, which is not stoppable, by the way. You cannot really interrupt someone that is not casting. So I think for me, Frost Mage is really, really strong, especially at higher ratings, where they can just destroy melees pretty easily by kiting, by slowing everyone down. I think mistweavers is still S tier, especially with the change that they did with Thunderous Focus T, which is basically going to make your enveloping mist instant, and it will get more healing as well. So it's going to be very, very hard to play versus a mistweaver. It's going to be very difficult to actually interrupt one because they can just play without getting soothing mists out. You can have instant vivifies, you can have instant enveloping mist, you can sometimes soothing mist with Send Focus T, for example. You have a lot of ways to actually make your allies survive. So I think mistweaver is right now at their place in S tier. Brewmaster, I'm going to put it in tanks, but if I have to judge it really, I think it would be a B tier because I just never faced them, so I cannot really know if they're going to be good or not. Like, if I faced like tanks in Soul Shuffle, I would then say, okay, look, it's going to be good or not. But right now, I only have hearsay. I can just hear what people say about Brewmaster, but I never play versus one. Never. I even play more versus Outlaw Rogues than any of the tanks combined. So it's actually very weird, but it is what it is. Windwalker got a buff. Pretty substantial buff. I think it's A tier, probably ahead of Unholy DK. Very strong, very bursty, and just natural melee that is going to blow people up. They can still die, but with the Touch of Karma buff, it is very difficult to actually go through the Karma because you will get blown up if the healer is not dispelling it. Holy Paladin, they got a few changes. Am I going to put it in B or in A tier? I think I'm going to put it in B tier because I still think Preservation is just better than Holy Paladin. But there is a world where Holy Paladin is better than Restoration Druid. But versus more casters, you're going to always struggle. Versus melees, you're going to be better. So it is very matchup dependent, and that's why B tier is actually very good. B tier is viable or good. A tier is meta. God tier is S tier. C tier is underpowered, and D tier is just straight bad. That is my tier list. Protection Paladin, tank. You're playing versus yourself, so it's very hard. It could be S tier, right? But they're playing versus each other, so it's very hard to actually know if it's going to be good or not. Retribution Paladin, I'm going to succumb the hype, and I'm going to say that it is going to be very high A tier. I'm not going to put it in S tier because we don't want to get it nerfed, right? No problem, Retribution Paladin. I got your back. We are not going to make it nerfed. Nah, but for real, they got nerf on PTR. I think pre-nerf they would be S tier. But right now, since they got nerfed a bit on PTR, it's still better than the current version in 10.5. But those changes are going to be pretty legit. You're going to enjoy your time as a Retribution Paladin. I would recommend people to actually play one. And I will make videos about it, so if you're not playing one, you will see one on my channel. So be sure to subscribe again on the channel if you enjoy those videos. Disc Priest, S tier. I don't know if I have to really reiterate what I'm thinking about Disc Priest, but it is still very strong in social. Damage reduction is king, and especially since they do damage as well. But they got nerfed on damage, but still they're still better than majority of the healers. I think Mistweaver and Disc Priest are the healers that you're going to see the most in Soul Shuffle. Holy Priest, I'm still going to put it in C tier because dampening is really bad for you. That's the only issue. If dampening was not as fast, I think it would be better. But okay, avoiding CC and such is quite cool, but that's not enough if you cannot heal or makes people sustain the damage. So for me, it's going to be still Holy Priest. And getting kicked is not something that is going to be very rare for you, since you do have to cast some flash heals, some big casts here and there. And I think it's not enough to just rely on Serenity. Shadow Priest, I want to put it low, but I want to put it in A tier, but again, my mind is a bit clouded because I do think about 10.1 and how they get changed and how they get actually a bit slaughtered on 10.1. I think the rework is not good. I wish it was good, but it is just not good. So for me, it's going to be A tier right now, but in 10.1, it might be C tier. I think it's going to be only a utility spec from there. But again, you have the single capacity to actually make a healer go offline, pretty much because of the CC you can do. And you can carry games because of that. I think CC is king in general, despite what some content creators say. I think CC is the one thing that is actually making you as a healer struggle. And if you're not struggling because of CC, then you have to give me the Kool-Aid, man. Because I mean, whenever I'm healing, the probability that I'm losing is because of CC and not because of my capacity to not full heal someone. Generally, I'm getting CC'd and then I have to pop my CTs, and then the next CC is lethal. That's the course of action that a healer has. So if you say that CC is not lethal and it's not like important, then I don't know what game you're playing, but it's not the same game I'm playing right now. Assassination Rogue, I was kind of wrong with my final tier list. I think it's still S tier. I just don't face a lot of Assassination Rogue right now because I think they kind of like flavor of the month jumped out. But whenever I do, they didn't get changed in 10.7. I think it's still very strong. Deathmark is still something that people do not know how to deal with. They still have the good damage. They still have like wounding, poison, mind numbing, and they have tools to actually deal with most specs and classes. So for me, S tier. Subtlety Rogue the same, S tier as well. I think it's better than Assassination Rogue though. They have one shots, they have CC, and they do get nerfed in Temple 1 because of the CC. So I can't wait to see what is going to happen with rogues. But I think in general, right now, it is probably the best time to get CR with that spec and class. Outlaw Rogue, I'm going to put it in. Look, I'm going to put it in C tier, man. I cannot put it higher because the ones I'm seeing are always going to be the targets to kill. But also just in general, I think it's not as good as the other specs. Genuinely, I think it deserves the C tier spot just because of that. I think they just need a rework or a rearrangement on the damage. And as long as we have the problem with having two specs being clearly better than in one spec, it is going to sit in C or B tier. You cannot like convince me to put it in B tier. I think yes, they have CC, yes, they have some damage here and there, but what is different between Assassination Rogue and Outlaw Rogue except the damage, right? And the damage is so much higher with Assassination Rogue, which means that CC is also very much lethal. Outlaw Rogues, whenever they CC me or whatever, it's actually annoying because of the other DPS actually killing. It's like a super utility spec, like it's super spec that is actually relying on the other specs to actually kill people. So for me, C tier, deserved. Elemental Shaman, I think it's still A tier. As S tier, I think it's very strong. I think it's better than Frost Mage. Again, you have a crit build, which is pretty fantastic in the amount of damage you can produce. But if you play the normal build, you are going to be a machine. You're still going to be a lava burst machine. Hopefully with Temple 1 it will be a bit changing. I do not want to spam lava burst. I want to also like cast lightning bolts. But that's not an impossibility right now because it is just not doing the damage that it should be doing. But if they actually change that, I would see Elemental Shaman actually a bit worse because you have to cast a bit more, but a bit more fun as well, a bit less clunky as a spec overall. Enhancement Shaman, dudes. I think it's like B tier. And you might say, look, Enhancement Shaman, they do die and such. And that's true, they do die. But I think in general, your damage is pretty RNG, but it happens more often than not. Whenever you get an Ascendance proc and you are like doing Doomwind and Heroism and such, you are going to do some pretty sick damage. And if I'm not mistaken, you can have Water Shield and Lightning Shield, which is going to be pretty strong. Ah, man. No, maybe you should not play with Lightning Shield then. I don't know. Because the Water Shield is going to be with Unleash Shield going to be very strong because you're going to give minus 50% healing and damage. And that is actually very, very strong if you're facing someone. Now, problem is with Lightning Shield and Water Shield is you're going to push that target. And I don't know if it's going to be something that you want to do because you do not want to move the Water Shield like Unleash Shield proc. So I don't know if you're going to play it like that, but there is a possibility to do that though. So I wonder if it's going to be better because of that. The one thing I'm a bit sad is, again, they did do a few changes on the class tree, and some changes makes you take a few talents that you really do not want. But I think Enhancement Shaman is still B tier because they are strong. And I think next patch in 10.1 it will be even stronger with the few changes on the spec tree. I think I'm very happy with Enhancement Shaman right now. It's viable. You do die, you do die, but you do get a buff on a few things on the class tree, which can help you to survive and be more cleavy. So I think it's actually a very good thing. Restoration Shaman. That's very hard to judge, man. I want to say, so if you're watching the video and you're listening, Restoration Shaman is a guess purely because I don't know if it's a buff or a nerf overall. So I'm going to put it in between Holy Paladin and Resto Druid. It's a guess. I really don't know. I really don't know. Even when reading the patch note multiple times and even making a video about it, I still do not know if the Restoration Shaman changes are a buff or a nerf. So we will have to say and test and see for ourselves if it's going to be good or not. Affliction Warlock, also Water Shield is like now baseline, so I guess it's going to be good, like regardless. But still we'll have to see and feel. Affliction Warlock, they got a buff, pretty substantial buff actually. Also single target buff, so I think I can reliably say that he's now B tier. Like my previous like talents and oh no, my previous tier list, I put Affliction a bit lower. But with the changes, I think it's going to be very close to A tier, so I'm going to put it in B tier, high B tier. I know that maybe some people would put it in S or A tier, but I have to see the changes, I have to test it. I think it is now more bursty and you have ways to actually be better, but I wonder what we're going to do. So we're going to see, but for me it's going to be viable still. I think the dampening meta is not good for you though. Well, it's good, but it's not good because people die in bursts right now, and Affliction Warlock, the burst is very low, but I wonder with the changes if the burst is going to be higher. So again, grain of salt. It can be wrong, this one, but it's my prediction. Again, it's a prediction, so it could be completely wrong or completely right. We will see after the changes. Demonology Warlock is going to be A tier. The changes on the Demonic Tyrant is going to be insane. I think it's going to be strong. I think it's going to be obnoxious for people to deal with. Felguard doing more damage on single target, so if you're like isolated, you're going to get destroyed by the Felguard. I think overall it's a big W for Demonology Warlock, and I can't wait to actually test it. I'm never really excited to play Demonology, but right now I want to play Demonology because I want to test those changes. I want to feel myself play Demonology Warlock, and I have already a build in my mind, so I can't wait to test it on the battlefield and also on the arenas. Destruction Warlock, I think it's pretty safe to say that it is one of the best casters in the game. It's very strong, very bursty, has a lot of instants, has 3 spells of schools of spells, schools, whatever. I don't know, I can't even speak anymore. And I think in overall power they are very strong. They do get countered by some specs here and there, but I think with Social Fall and with the actual meta going around, I think Destruction Warlock is in a right and great spot to play in. So I think it's still behind BM Hunter. I think BM Hunter is just superior in every single way. I think a trap is more sticky than fear. It's also more unavoidable as well because you can get stun trap, and that's something that is going to last for a long time. While fear, you can get interrupted. There are also specs that can just get and break out of fears pretty easily. I'm thinking about warriors, for example. So for me, Destruction Warlock deserves S tier. Arms Warrior, people will say S tier. I still am going to maintain my A tier. You can say that I'm biased or not, but I swear to God, you just need to see an Arms Warrior in a castle lobby, man. Just watch a Arms Warrior in a castle lobby facing a Disc Priest, facing a mistweaver. Good luck. Good effing luck. If you get 3 wins, it would be already a miracle, man. That's how I feel with Arms Warrior. Of course, they are very good. Of course, if casters didn't exist, it would be S tier, but casters do exist. So I don't see them in a world where casters are prevalent, because casters are prevalent above 2k rating. If you are above 2k rating, I swear to God, you know what I'm talking about. You know the hunters that are actually like living there, the mages, the elemental shamans, the destruction warlocks. And yes, whenever you're facing a retribution, paladin, a assassination rogue, or a demon hunter or whatever, you're going to feel good. But right now it is not the case. You're facing a lot of casters. It is a caster meta. Even if people would say that it is not, it is a caster meta. And casters are very scary. I think in trees it is much better because you can like play with people that are actually synergizing with you. But in social fall, where people are like doing their own thing, you are dying because of that. So for me, A tier, still meta though. It's still very close to S tier. It's just like in those lobbies you cannot do anything. While for example, a rogue or a demon hunter has a lot more ways to actually catch up with the casters. Fury Warriors is the worst spec in the game. They didn't get changed in 10.7. I hope they do get changed in 10.1. I don't even remember if they got changed. They need reworks. They just need a big rework, big rework. I think overall, it's very hard to judge Fury Warrior because I do love Fury Warrior. I do love Warrior in general. I just think the damage is not sticking. It's way too monotone. You know what is going on. There is no real switch that you can do to actually like blow someone up. The bloodbath build is cool, consistent, but it's not going to kill anyone. The crushing blow, like wrecking blow, like those things are not going to make you kill people. And that's the only issue. And sustain and whatever, of course, you're going to survive a bit more because people are ignoring you because you're not a threat. But if you were a threat, I can guarantee you Fury Warriors are actually quite squishy. So for me, D tier, I think it just needs a bit more than that. I would say a rework should be on the table with enhancement shaman, with affliction warlocks and such. But I don't think it will be happening with this expansion. So this is my tier list. Please let me know what you think about the tier list. It's already 30 minutes. I think it's still on the lower side of duration for me. I always make 1 minute, like 1 hour videos, but I will try to make some timestamps for you guys so you can actually jump onto the explanation. Please, if you're watching the end of the tier list, do try to understand that without context you are not going to understand why I put Demon Hunter at S tier or anything else. So please do watch the video completely so you can actually like give arguments if you're like against it. I like if you're not like giving me, or at least if you are disagreeing with my tier list, at least try to listen to the commentary behind it, because again I try to always comment every single choice I made on the tier list. So thank you for watching this video, really appreciate you. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that yet, and we will catch each other very soon in the next video. Have a good day. Bye.